One year we watched the draft, and we see the Montreal Canadiens selecting a 22-goal scorer in the first round. It was almost panic at the Forum in Montreal. A 22-goal scorer in the first round. Nobody believed it.
A pass up on the left wing. It's taken by Geinie. Geinie dodges the check of his line. Johnson in behind the goal. Right out in front. They shoot. They score! Some sloppy defensive work, and Geinie came whistling in to make it 5-2, Ontario.
There is more to the game of hockey than scoring goals. And the keen eye of Montreal's legendary general manager Sam Pollock saw the potential in a young Peterborough player.
The drafting of Bob Geinie as the Montreal Canadiens' number one pick was typical Sam Pollock. I mean, he knew. We didn't know. I'm sure that somebody like Sam Pollock wasn't the least bit surprised that Bob Geinie turned out to be Bob Geinie.
It was a surprise to me, and I think a surprise to most of the people at that time. I was drafted higher in the draft than I had been slotted. And to Montreal, who was a strong team at the time, had won the Stanley Cup the previous spring, or that spring, and really didn't look like they needed a lot of help. But away I went anyway. The first year was really a hazy, misty kind of experience where there was so much to learn, and the season passed along quickly. And I did absorb a lot, but really wasn't effective as a player. And sometime during the following off-season, our invitation letter to the training camp for the following year simply stated that our goal was to win the Stanley Cup, that we had failed the year before, and that there was nothing else in between.
The Montreal Canadiens' dedication to winning was a perfect match for Bob Geinie, as he perfected the demanding role of defensive forward.
Bob Geinie was a terrific skater, this wonderful all-round player. On the Canadiens, you knew you could score goals. What you also needed to be able to do was to shut down the best on the other side. And shut them down not just to prevent them from scoring, but to defeat them.
Well, Bob Geinie became an important player because we had him on a top line for stopping the other team's best players. So he had a tough assignment every night. He generally had to play against the other team's best right winger. And he didn't think it was that tough in his own mind.
He took away a lot of your ice. When you pick the puck up, you're looking at Bob Geinie on the ice. And usually he was in front of you. That's a sign of a good checker. He wasn't chasing you. You had to go through him.
If you play against him, it's one thing you will find out: you never quit. Bob Geinie was probably the best defensive forward ever played a game.
I like to play a physical style. I like to bump into people. I like to bump people from the puck and recover the puck. And I had size, and I had speed, and I had balance on my skates, and I enjoyed it because it was something that I was good at.
Bob Geinie knew exactly what he needed to do. When he'd get the big hit in early, make you realize that, boy, it was going to be a long, hard night. You know, you talk about the Soviet coach that said that this is the greatest player in the world. And this is not a goaltender or a high-scoring defenseman or someone that's going to get 120 points. This is a 50-point man who's the greatest player in the world, according to the Soviets, who love the brilliance of the way the game is supposed to be played.
It was kind of interesting because he made the defensive game really come to light. I mean, when people saw Bob Geinie, they'd watch Bob Geinie because they knew that this was a defensive player, and I think that's one of the very first times that people would really come and watch a defensive player.
He was so good, he was so intense that the league had to create a trophy to honor players of his caliber, a defensive forward.
From its inception, the Frank Selke Trophy would bear Bob Gainie's name for 4 consecutive years. A leader on the ice, Geinie would be named captain of the Montreal Canadiens in 1981.
Winning the Stanley Cup and holding it up is fabulous, but it's the day-to-day work that goes in to get you there that makes holding it up so much fun.
He's not a guy that goes into something and does it half-heartedly. Whatever he does to the best of his ability, and he gives it everything that he has.
Geinie sweeping around the net, leading an attack to Canadiens to center.
And there's Geinie going after it in the Islander zone. He rolled it in front, he scores! Geinie, 7 seconds into the first period.
There's a lot of respect and a lot of responsibility attached to being the captain in Montreal, and so it was an honor, but it was a responsibility, and it's one of those things that has happened in my life. As things come up and I run into them, I very seldom say no.
He's very well spoken, very well respected, probably looked up to by more players and ex-players than anybody that I've ever played with.
Geinie would win 5 Stanley Cups, the last coming in 1986. 3 years later, he would step from the ice to the front office to continue his winning ways.
I'm still at it, and I'm still at it because I love it, because I like the competition. And I understand the ground, I understand the turf, and it feels good.